I mean, it's getting kind of like, are we doing an interview tonight? What's his name? Gerald Iron, right? Is that it?
No, I think it's Jeremy Irons, right?
It's Jiggy. Guys, you guys have me saying the wrong name.
Guys, it's Gregory Iron, singular, not plural. I mean, oh my God, I've been doing this for 15 years. Nobody can get my name right. Look, can we start the show? Is that cool? Let's get it going.
You're watching DCTV. Now here's your host, the voice, Dave Canning. It's you, it's me, it's DCTV. It's you, it's me, it's DCTV. Let's start the show.
That is right, ladies and gentlemen. It is you, it is me, it is NRD. And of course, today we are not alone. We are joined by the one, the only Gregory Iron, our guest today. Greg, thank you for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
This is awesome. When we started this, I had the checklist that I wanted. I wanted to do this show. I wanted to have a guest. I wanted to interview people for Pro Wrestling Tees, but most importantly, I wanted to make sure that we had a professional wrestler on. So you get to check that illustrious bucket list item off for us today. So thank you, sir, so much for being here.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, man.
I appreciate it. And, it's just a good thing that on that list, you didn't put a good professional wrestler, or else, you'd still be looking.
Hey, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, you are a great professional wrestler. So, this is gonna be our new starting topic for our show. So obviously we are the Wrestling Nerd broadcast. So Greg, what makes you a wrestling nerd?
There's a lot of things that make me a wrestling nerd. I mean, I never stopped being a fan. I've often said it in a lot of interviews. Before I thought I could be a pro wrestler, because I didn't think that was a possibility because I was born with cerebral palsy. I thought I was going to be a wrestling commentator, and I had no idea that wrestling commentators had notes in front of them. So I just figured, well, if I wanted to be a commentator in wrestling, I have to memorize things. So I would literally just read wrestling autobiographies and magazines and pick up every fact that I could and just commit it to memory, even down to like the attendance record of some events. Like, WrestleMania 6 had 67,678 people in attendance at the Sky Dome in Toronto. And the main event was Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior, championship versus championship, title for title, Intercontinental title versus the WWF championship. I shouldn't know that, but I do. And, of course, WrestleMania 3, 93,173. I can't get that figure wrong. And sometimes it gets disputed whether or not there was 93,173 people in attendance. But I think it's pretty accurate when you look at the sky shot from down looking into the arena. All the seats are filled, and there's roughly 90,000 seats in that venue. So why wouldn't there have been 93,000 according to that picture? And that happened on March 29th, 1987, of course. And I don't know. I know pointless information, especially when it pertains to the WWF. I mean, at one point in my life, I legitimately remember sitting in my room with a list of every WWF champion and every WWF champion, and I memorized every champion from Buddy Rogers until I think it was Stone Cold in 2001 at that point. And you're probably thinking, Greg, did you have a girlfriend at this time? The answer would be no.
Listen, that's quite all right. That's a lot of us in this boat. And now you've put me to shame, because I was going to say what made me a nerd was I could name every Royal Rumble winner in chronological order. But now that you can name, you were able to name all the champions and just, wow, you know a lot more than me.
I still can name every Royal Rumble winner in chronological order. That's probably the only wrestling fact that I've really, because once I become a wrestler in 2006, my knowledge gets a little bit more sporadic, because especially, and I've often cited that I think it's because when they go to HD and WWE, all the sets become the same. And I think the sets help me differentiate between events. But for whatever reason, I still can tell you every Royal Rumble winner from 1988 until today, including the women. So, I mean, that's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, the way you mentioned sets, I'm the same way with the Rumble winners. Like I have to think of what's the WrestleMania that happens, and that's how. And it gets fuzzy around 31 because I'm like, wait, they don't refer to that as WrestleMania 31. It's just WrestleMania. I'm like, wait, who won the Royal Rumble that year? So,
Yep.
so that's awesome. Anybody else have a weird wrestling quirk about them? What makes you gentlemen nerds? We have to earn our keep here.
I'm not even a good wrestling nerd. Again, when you go with Greg's knowledge, like that's the nerd my family thinks I am, but I'm not that good. The only thing I came up with is, I'm nearing 40, and if someone says wrestling is not real, I will explain to them the real factors. It's still, it's still real to me. Dang it, and defend it.
Cue the video that I have of Darby Allin chopping my chest. I'm not going to show that again, but oof. Still hurts, and I paid for it. Literally, I paid for him to chop my chest. So Ryan, I think you prepared most of our questions for this one. You deer in the headlight look. I love it.
I'm crazy. I was trying to have a frozen screen there.
I was like, no.
My wife wants to talk to me about Roman Reigns again. I gotta go.
No, you cheater. That's not happening this time, and it won't happen at WrestleMania either.
No, she's excited to watch, though. I'm excited. She's like, I want to see what happens in the Roman Reigns match. I'm like, cool. I'm like, I'll take it. We get to watch WrestleMania, or at least have her participate a bit, Okay, here we go.
Can I cut you off right there? Because you actually just made me thought of a question. So, Gregor, I know everyone obviously growing up, the big show was WWE, but now with the likes of AEW and obviously Impact now on the rise again, and ROH always getting mentioned, in New Japan, is WWE still the main goal for most wrestlers, including yourself, that you know of?
I don't think so. I think if you have a love and a passion for professional wrestling, I think the goal is to make money as a wrestler. That's a pretty high priority. But I think just as important for a lot of my friends in the industry is to be creative. I've known a number of people that thought WWE was their dream, and then they got there. And I've legitimately had, again, friends that I know that have worked there that have said, I'm making this amount of money, but I would trade 99% of that for just one more percentage of creativity. And when I hear that, that kind of makes me sad, because I think if you fall in love with wrestling and you understand wrestling, you fall in love with the artistry behind it. And I think that's probably the funnest part of wrestling for me is, as a human being, and I think this goes for a lot of people, I have a hard time connecting the puzzle pieces of life sometimes. There's some things that I wish I could figure out about life that I just can't. But there's something about the art of wrestling that I've found an understanding and a comfort in. And it's like, even though I can't piece together life, I can somehow piece together professional wrestling. And that took a lot of time to figure out, and a lot of studying and a lot of learning from better people. But there's something really cool about taking these puzzle pieces and like putting together and creating this work of art, but then having the ability to, because wrestling is such an interesting puzzle, you could take away a couple pieces and you can look at the pieces you're working with. You can find a couple more that fit in a different way, but make it just as beautiful. And I think that's the best part of wrestling, is this ability for, as a performer, to be creative. And when you take away that creativity, it just becomes a job, And I think the goal for anyone, whether you want to be in wrestling or you love something else, the goal is, when you find a job, is for it to not be a job. So I think you want to make money at a job in professional wrestling, but you also want to have fun. And I think that's the ultimate goal, is to just be able to speak for myself personally. I don't even want to be rich, man. I want to make enough money to be comfortable, and I want to be able to be creative. And even if that extends outside the ring, if I can do a job behind the scenes, like being an agent or something, and just helping other people be creative, there's a joy and a fulfillment that I get from that. So just give me a couple bucks and let me work within wrestling, and I'm a happy camper. I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that.
Definitely. I mean, I will say this. One of the most fun shows I ever saw was Pancakes and Pile Drivers WrestleMania weekend, when it was in New York 2 years ago at this point. and Jake Manning, I don't know if you ever had the pleasure of meeting him, brings out a tent, and it was the most over thing of the show. And this show had Sammy Guevara, it had Sammy Callahan, it had just so many bright stars on it, and a tent was the most over thing. And you're not going to see that at a WWE show, which is why I love independent wrestling. So
it's a beautiful thing. Independent wrestling just gives you the opportunity to just think outside the box in a lot of ways and do things that, like you mentioned, you would never see on WWE television, which is kind of a shame because, I think the idea of professional wrestling, at least the thing that I always preach in seminars, is you want to create logic out of the illogical. Because if we think about it, wrestling is very illogical, but there are things that work inside this illogical world to create this sort of wrestling logic. Like if you overthink wrestling, hitting the ropes and bouncing back is pretty ridiculous, but it's something that we just accept in professional wrestling. So I think, like, while wrestling should be based in realism, there are elements from all walks of life. Just like we like different types of movies. Sometimes we want to see a horror, sometimes we want to see a comedy, sometimes we want to see an action movie, sometimes we want sci-fi. I think there's multiple elements in which we can adapt into pro wrestling. And I think comedy is one of the most special forms. I mean, I love comedic wrestling. When I first started, I wanted to be super serious because I got bullied as a kid, and I was used to being like this nerdy kid that liked wrestling. So now that I was in wrestling, I wanted to prove people I'm a serious wrestler, and I wasn't having as much fun. And then once I loosened up a little bit and I was able to incorporate elements of who I am as a human being, which is kind of snarky and sarcastic and funny and just kind of be more lighthearted, I found that I had more fun in wrestling. And some of my biggest pops in professional wrestling have been doing comedy. And it's something that I truly love, that you could tell so many different stories within the realm of professional wrestling. I think that's what makes it so beautiful.
definitely. So Ryan, you were about to say before I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Great question. You gave me time to think of something I don't have. Not really. Jake Manning's story, now that you mentioned him, I met him at a StarCast before Double or Nothing, AEW's first pay-per-view. I think I'd barely seen a clip of him on YouTube or something. He's working the high spots booth, not his own booth, but I went over. I'm like, yeah, you look familiar. He's like, because you're looking in a mirror, man. So I guess I'm like his stunt double.
Oh
But,
my God. I can't unsee that now. I'm going to have to tell my
had a
sister.
mustache because I only had the mustache too. Somehow my wife like dated me with this big mustache. I don't know.
Ryan, my sister has your pro wrestling pint size all-star on her desk.
There you go. That's my Halloween costume coming up, I guess.
It's not a costume, everyone.
So, Greg, I got a question. Do you remember you're good with dates. I didn't even have this question. Do you remember the date you and I met first? If not, this podcast is over.
I don't know the date, but I know it was at Bar Wrestling, and it would have been.
Yeah,
that was 2018.
I would only know because I have the disc. That I'm messing with you. The scholar, all my knowledge is from stuff. It's not in here.
Yeah, Ryan sits in front of a computer while he does this.
Yeah, it's real. Yeah, but you're right. It was night 2 of Three's Company Trios tournament. But yeah, it's February 22nd, 2019. Feels like so much longer than me.
Yeah, it does.
Being a part of your podcast and everything like that. But helps me get to know you even more. It's flown by. Yeah. But to be honest, I guess I just share real quick. Like I liked and appreciated you as a person before I got to see you as a wrestler. I didn't know who you were, didn't know a lot of people. I was just getting back into wrestling, walked up to the booth. I have to admit it was slightly awkward, I guess, because I was new to wrestling. You were wearing your like red trunks with Ninja Turtles and Bart Simpson on them. I'm like, hello, I have to walk right past you. I can't.
And you didn't stop?
Yeah, it's just like, hey, how's it going? And, noticed your cool trunks, but at the same time, don't want to look at them for too long.
Yeah, the turtle was right on the crotch, so you'd have to
hello, sir.
That's my favorite turtle. But
don't poke the head of the shell.
Yeah. But I talked to you. I lightly, sadly, I knew of Zach a little bit, Zach Gowen, because I think I barely caught, with my checking in and out on wrestling every once in a while, knew who he was from WWE. But anyway, you'd mentioned, I think you shared like, oh, I have CP, and I just kind of made a friend at church, a young man who was in the wrestling as well. And we bonded over that, but he had cerebral palsy as well. I'm like, oh, awesome. Can I get a promo? And, like I said, you won me over just as a person. You gave me that to me for free for him. And I just thought that was really awesome. Then you gave me a high five. I didn't really remember that, like, because bar wrestling was cool, walking through the crowds, So I got a high five from you and such. I wish I would have got a picture, but just want to say you won me over as a person before your wrestling prowess.
That means a lot, man.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people lose sight of how important that human connection is, and just, I don't know. I never got the opportunity to go to a lot of shows when I was like a kid or anything. I like to think that, I don't know, I'd want to have a good experience like that as a kid. And as an adult, I know when I started going to indie shows, I remember the guys that were kind of dicks, and I remember the dudes that were really good to me. And I just know, you don't have to get into sale mode when you're at the gimmick table. I think the best sales pitch that you can make is just being a genuine good person. I don't know, like, and it's not even about like, if I'm nice to this guy, I might sell an 8x10 or shirt. Like, I mean, there's an element of that, but I think in general, you want to make those real human connections. And I don't know, like, the human connection is a great part of life that I think a lot of people take for granted. And it's unfortunate that it takes things like death for people to go, tell that person you love them, or talk to that person more often. If you're holding out, giving a phone call to someone that you miss, give them a phone call. It's like, I think about that at all times. And maybe this is kind of going off topic or rambling, but Ryan, from the podcast, this is what happens sometimes. It's like, I don't know, I'm not the most religious guy in the world, and I worry what's going to happen when I pass away. And sometimes, sometimes the only true afterlife is the memories you leave behind, I feel. And so when I leave this world, or whatever happens to me, I just want people to remember me for the kind of person that I was, and not like the whole world, just like the people that I care about or that I interacted with. Like, I want them to leave thinking that I was a decent person. Unless, of course, I hate them, then I don't care what they do.
Perfect.
I have a question. Speaking of, if you hate them, because I in my research for this, I came across a promo that you cut on Brian Cage in AAW with a juice box.
Yeah.
Best thing I've ever seen in my life. Not you getting like destroyed by Brian Cage. I hope you're okay after that. But do you have a favorite promo or segment that you've gotten to cut? That you just, what was your most creative moment? Almost, you talk about being an independent wrestler allows you to be so creative.
It's a hard choice, man, because it just depends on what type of story I was telling. I love that Wrestling N.R.D moment. If you guys never seen it on YouTube, I suggest you look it up. Me with a juice box, it was kind of a spur moment decision. Obviously, Brian Cage looks like he may or may not take steroids. This was the second time that I've ever met Brian, and I just happened to have a juice box in my car, and I knew I had to cut a promo on him before he beat me up. So I said, I was trying to think to myself, steroids, anabolic, juice, and then my brain went to this juice box because a fan had recently given me the high C ecto coolers.
Yep.
And I left them in my car. And I love Ghostbusters, so that's why they gave me the ecto cooler. So I was like, this is perfect. And I walked up to Brian kind of timidly because, again, I only met him once. We're not friends. I just go, hey, I have this idea for a promo. What do you think? And he said, I love it. And so I was like, great. And so what I think made that moment special is it's one of those things that when you see a guy like Brian, that's what you're thinking, but you're not going to say it.
No.
And so for me to come out nonchalant with the juice box and not make Brian at all until the very end of that promo, and then kind of get the line of, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't offer you a juice box, but I would have brought one out for you, but you've got enough juice in you to last a lifetime. Like, I got from those fans, you go back and listen to it again, because it's like the reaction is like, holy shit, he really just said that. Like, I can't
Yep.
believe he said it. Like, I thought maybe that's where I was going, but he actually said it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a special moment for me. Really, anytime that I get to be a bad guy, I feel like where I do my best stuff, which is ironic because my character as a disabled athlete with cerebral palsy, I think is the prototypical good guy. There's a time I wrestled Jimmy Jacobs that I think's on YouTube to watch, where Jimmy Jacobs has often been known in recent years as the zombie princess. And so he comes out with the tiara on and an outlandish outfit. And so I'm having this match with him, and I was being a bad guy in Buffalo. And my theme song hits, but it's not my typical theme song. It was Butterfly by Crazy Town, which is a
Oh my
stereotypical
God.
terrible thing in 2001. And what I did was I went out and I borrowed a dress from a girl that I know, because I'm a very tiny man. And I bought butterfly wings so I can come out and butterfly. I wore a wig and a tiara, and I got on the top rope and I'm flapping my wings, and the crowd is just like dying, right? And so I grabbed the microphone and I go, Jimmy Jacobs, you want to play mind games? Yeah, you want to try to get in my head? Well, how does it feel now? Because if you are the zombie princess tonight, you're dealing with the handicap queen. And like, so the crowd popped for that, and then we get face to face, and like it wasn't something we talked about until that moment. We're staring eye to eye, and the refs kind of like in between us, and Jimmy just kind of mumbles under his breath, "Take your tiara off at the same time as me." And I understood in that moment. So we both slowly reached up and we grabbed the tiara and we slowly raised them off our head. And then we both slowly passed them to the referee. And it's just like,
It's awesome.
special. And I don't know, like, I think as you get older, again, I relate wrestling a lot to life. I think you learn to appreciate the little things in life so much more than you did when you were a kid. And I think in wrestling, it's those little tiny nuances that bring the big picture together. Like, I guess I always use this as a reference. Like, think about Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair from WrestleMania 24. Just the beauty of that moment. But in those final moments of the match, the thing that made that so much beautiful was every little moving piece that's happening, and the element of realism that's in it. You know, Shawn hits the boom, Flair's down, and we're going into the finish. But in reality, too, Ric Flair knows that he's really going to retire. He knows it's predetermined that he's losing this match. And there's 30-ish years of just memories and passion and experiences that end at this moment. And as he's speeding to his feet and he's like begging Shawn to like finish him off because he's like old Yeller and he knows he's going to die. He's like begging him, put me out of my misery. And there's those real tears coming out of Flair's face. And then, of course, the close-up shot of Shawn saying, "I'm sorry, I love you," because he knows he's got to pull the trigger and kill this dog that he's loved for so long and one of his favorite wrestlers' career. And then he super kicks him and then he pins him. And then that moment where he immediately grabs Rick on the face and like almost like cuddles him, and like he knows what he's done and he wished he didn't have to do it, but he did it. And how he just storms out of the ring to give Flair the ring. It's just like, it's those little moving parts that makes wrestling so special. And I know I sort of answered your question, but then I went into a rambling, but again, that's what I do. I'm sorry. I love you.
You talk about emotion there, and that makes me think of a good question. Do you have a favorite emotional moment in your career? Like, so it's a two-part. Do you have a favorite emotional moment as in your career and as a fan as well?
In my career, what comes to, I mean, there's been so many times where I've cried in the ring. When I had my moment with CM Punk back in 2011, where he publicly endorsed me in front of a crowd, which really sort of got my career going as far as making money and a name for myself. I'll never forget that. But I think one that kind of goes under the radar that only the live fans captured, and I don't think it's on, I know a camera phone captured it, but there's nothing on like an actual professional quality DVD or anything. It was Johnny Gargano's final independent wrestling match, and he's my best friend. He's like my brother. I'm probably closer to him than my actual brothers. And when the match was over, it was me and a kid by the name of Alex Daniels versus Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. And they're both two of my closest friends. And Johnny gave like a 30-minute speech afterwards, and the crowd in Cleveland like just stayed for the whole thing. And all the boys surrounded the ring. And then as the boys were going to the back and the crowd was filing out, it was just me and Johnny in the ring. And we just had this moment. And, just me and him talking. And he says, when I walk out of this ring, I'm no longer in wrestling. Like, I'm in WWE full time. I said, well, you should probably walk out of the ring because, WWE is way cooler than independent wrestling. You make a lot of more money and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I don't know if I want to leave. I'm like, I think you should, man. I think it's important you do this. And eventually, after rambling for like 2 or 3 minutes, he stepped out of the ring and onto the apron. And it was like the second his feet hit that apron, before they even touched the floor, like I remember just looking down, I just started crying because I was happy for my friend. It was like real tears of joy, but I think there was this element of sadness and almost worry that, like, I don't know, I might not get to wrestle my friend ever again. And that might sound strange, I guess, but there are some people that you just have a connection with, not just in life, but when you're a performer. Just people that you don't even have to talk sometimes. You don't have to verbalize anything. Things just happen. And when you work with a certain person, I know in my case, I move differently and I feel like I'm better. And Johnny made me better. And we told great stories. And there was a part of me that there was this, what's the word I'm looking for? It was like this finalized feeling, this feeling that I just would never get to share this type of moment with my friend again. And so I tried to really appreciate that moment, but there was this incredible sadness. And so I think about that more often than I should probably, but obviously I'm really happy for Johnny. And I think my ultimate dream, a lot of people ask me like what my dream match would be. What wrestler would you like to wrestle? Like, I think I just want to wrestle my friend Johnny in WWE because we spent so much time together. I lived with him for like 7 years, and we watched so much wrestling together. And if I could wrestle my friend in WWE, the thing that we grew up loving, that's like the ultimate goal. And as far as like emotional moment, as a fan, I don't know, Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair thing ranks up there. There's so many tragic passings that I look back on, like, because they transcend wrestling. These are real people passing away. When Eddie Guerrero died, when Roddy Piper passed away, I cried. I almost got to work with Piper before he passed away. And so it made it that much more bittersweet when he passed that, I don't know, I never got to even meet him, which was sad. But yeah, there's a lot of emotional moments that I can think of.
That's pretty intense. That's pretty cool that, you got to, you've gotten to work so many big names and, get to see them where they are. And, it's almost like their success is your success in a way, if that makes sense, Yeah,
absolutely. While we're talking about it, before we move on, Brody Lee passing away, like that was incredibly sad and unexpected because, I shared locker rooms with Brody for a solid year and a half straight. And I got to wrestle Brody twice. And I was in the bathroom and I got a text from a fan maybe like 5 minutes after AEW had posted that he passed. And it was just jarring, just incredibly shocking because it was just out of nowhere. And then after I watched the tribute show, I was watching it with some wrestling friends, and I remember it ended and I watched the video package, and I love professional wrestling video packages. I said out loud, I can't believe Brody's gone. Like it still doesn't seem real. And I wasn't even that close with him. But the thing about Brody was everybody that he ever met, you had a conversation with the guy and you felt like you knew him forever. And we had like a 30 or 45-minute conversation at a Dragon Gate show once. And I've always held that in such high regard. I've talked about it for years. And I don't know, I feel for his family, but it's nice to know that, he was a genuine and great person to everybody he meant. So I think that's more important, is that legacy that you leave behind.
Yeah, absolutely. That tribute show that AEW did, I mean, I hate to say that, sadly, as a 32-year-old fan, I've seen more tribute shows than I care to, have seen in my lifetime, unfortunately. But the tribute they did to Brody is possibly one of the best tributes I've ever seen for anyone, not just a wrestler. I've seen athletes pay tribute to fallen legends of the games and whatnot, but that was great. And I think that the thing, like you said, that caught us all, it did catch so many of us off guard, but I think something that added to that was the fact that we saw him finally start to realize the potential that we all knew was there in WWE. And it was just full bore in AEW for the 6-7 months he was there. And it was just great to watch him do that.
I feel like that's the most heartbreaking thing of it all, is he was just scratching the surface of what he could have done in AEW. And
but I'll say this, if his son is half as good as he is now in 20 years, Hall of Famer, that kid is just, it's so great to see -1 every week. But so we speak about Brody Lee. We've spoken about how they will be releasing they've released them and they'll ship them soon, the AEW Micro Brawlers. Are you big into the Micro Brawler game, Greg?
I'm not a huge Micro Brawler guy, but I love toys, and Ryan really got me hip to the Micro Brawlers. And he sent me several that I super cherish and enjoy. I mean, I love the designs of them. I need to actually become a bigger collector. I mean, I have the Hogan one and the Stone Cold one and Ultimate Warrior and Papa Shango, and I have a Brian Cage autographed one, which I didn't realize autographed until just recently, where he said something about us sharing a juice box together. So I have a nice selection of Micro Brawlers, and I love toys. I love wrestling figures, and I'm quickly falling in love with the Micro Brawlers. They're a great little piece of plastic,
Yeah, it's easy to collect. It doesn't take up much room. No one yells at you for them being all over the place. I personally, that's how we all came together. So we'll have to get you in our Facebook group too sometime. We'll have to get you joined in on it. Oh, are you in it?
I'm in it.
Yeah, I think, you are.
Oh, see, that's how little I pay attention. I'm not one of the moderators. See, so any hateful stuff that falls through there, it's not on me. It's on these two guys.
So what? Say Pro Wrestling Tees was going to make a Micro Brawler of you. What would you want it to look like? You ever thought of it?
Ooh, man, I haven't really thought about it, but like it's the dream to have a Micro Brawler, just a toy in general. But I mean, me and Ryan DM a lot, and he had a really great idea actually that involved me and Gowan, as we frequently have teamed over the years, and like the idea of making a Micro Brawler in which it was connected, both me and Zach, because Zach has the missing leg, and like maybe we can have like my arm around Zach or Zach's arm around me or something, and just like be like the first 2-in-1 Micro Brawler. I think that's a really cool idea.
That is a cool idea. I like that.
I told the lead designer a while back,
Yes, Ryan is definitely. I don't know if you have a #1 fan recognized, but it's definitely Ryan Crossley, hands down.
I think so.
His advocate. I'm your Paul Heyman. That's why I shaved my head. It's not bald, I promise.
Yeah, I'll tell you this: if there was like the old school like official fan clubs where like you got to send out the news, Ryan's the guy doing that, sending out all the newsletters and whatnot. So, Ryan, what else?
Well, I know maybe I don't know if Greg wants to talk about Hasbro's. I know he's more into that. One little factoid though, again trying to pull you into the Micro Brawlerness. You joined the group already, but I think I noticed there's 21 wrestlers who have Hasbro's who also have Micro Brawlers. Not always the same gear, but we as you know we talked to David Stankin. He says he tries to do the same.
Yeah, that's what
gear.
he said. They're actually trying to do that.
I mean, a lot of
He
them
also loves Hasbro's.
Yeah, a lot of them
We're all around the same age. We all love Hasbro's. Let's face it. How could you not?
Although it was heartbreaking when I posted, like I cleaned out my closet to give like some of my like older childhood toys to my niece and nephew, and my sister's like, "Oh, you're not going to give them the wrestling action figures?" Like, "Oh no." And like I post them into the family. I was like, "I don't have much knowledge about these Hasbro's. Do I have any money here?" They're like, one guy's like, "Yeah, you get about $30." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, like I mean, I was born in 1985, and I had some of like the LJN ones, the big rubber ones. But let's face it, I was probably chewing on them and banging them together. Hasbro's are the first one where I sat down and I had matches and titles and storylines.
Yeah, Hasbro's were the first ones that I really collected, and but before that, my first memories of any wrestling toys that I had, and it was probably one of those things where someone found out that I was a wrestling fan, so they just gave me a few hand-me-down wrestlers. I had the LJN Macho Man, which I played with all the time, but I didn't understand why he was so big in rubber compared to my Hasbros. And then I had the little Bendham Roddy Piper, and I had a Bendham Junkyard Dog. And again, I didn't understand why they were so tiny. And then Macho Man was so big. I had no idea about the LGN, but the Hasbros, I mean, that was the height of my fandom. If I had to pick a time period in wrestling that I loved the most, it's like that 1991, 92, 93 time period. It's just 94 too. I think like that was Attitude Era was a different story. So I kind of like separate the two, but I feel like if I were to go back in any time as a fan, it would be like that period because I didn't know that it was predetermined at that point, and just like those larger than life figures really capture my imagination, and I think that's why I love the Hasbro so much. Just it was ingrained into my childhood.
Yeah, I have a Roddy Piper Hasbro that I've kept in every car I've ever driven since I was in high school. Random fact. I don't know why it just wound up in my high school car, and just like every time I've gotten a new car, I would take the old stuff out, put in the new, and Roddy Piper has just gone in every car I've owned. So
Glove box or where?
what's that?
Is he in the glove box or front seat buckled in? Where is he?
Usually in the center console, like little bucket part. So I had Hogan chilling on the rear view mirror because it was the one that like could flex together. But then I had an ex who threatened to throw it out the window, and I was like, "No, okay, Hogan's got to come up out of the car." So, yeah, that one didn't last. So, Ryan, you look deep in thought.
Oh no. If you guys got something, go ahead.
I mean, we could go to top 3 Tuesday if anybody's obliged to that. So we allowed Gregory to pick our top 3 Tuesday. We went with favorite pay-per-view theme songs. Is that right? Is that what we're going with?
I think so.
Okay. So, Gregory, I will allow you as our guest of honor to go first with your top 3 Tuesday.
Man, I mean, there's so many great theme songs to choose from, particularly when you think of WWE, mainly WWF, like before the transition to the WWE. It's a hard choice, and when I think of theme songs, I often associate them with the video package that correlated with it. And so I don't know, I'll maybe let you guys marinate on that a little bit because I feel like that adds to the aura of the theme song. So when we think about top 3 favorite WWF WWE pay-per-view theme songs, it's a tough call. But for me, I would have to say, and this is in no particular order, I would say Highway to Hell for SummerSlam.
Oh, yes.
That was a good song. Also, the video package, which did not get released on the home video, when they used AC/DC's Highway to Hell with Undertaker and Austin walking through fire, hell, if you will, to fight each other at SummerSlam. I think that can make a strong contender for one of the best pay-per-view theme songs of all time. I think you can't talk about pay-per-view theme songs if you can't talk about My Way by Limp Bizkit, WrestleMania 17, Rock and Austin. I mean, that's the quintessential pay-per-view music video. You don't get much better than that. We're actually approaching the 20-year anniversary on April 1st, which is crazy to think about. Yep. And I think if I had to make a third, it's tough because there's so many others that you just have to forget about. But again, I'm going to factor in the music video itself. And this is very cliche. This is very new metal of me because it's been so overused on the indies. But I think I'm going to pick Drowning Pool for SummerSlam 2001.
Nice. Those are all 3 solid songs.
Strong wrestling songs. You know what I'm saying? Like every shitty independent guy has come out to Bodies since 2001.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're going to talk about theme songs and you're going to associate WWF, I think you got to pick Bodies.
Absolutely. Ryan and Nick, do you need more time to think about your 3?
Uh, I know I can do it. I mean,
Okay. I've got my three. I'm ready whenever you guys are. So Nick, I'll let you go first. Okay.
I also wrote down the AC/DC Highway to Hell because I like the most. And then number 2 I thought of is the WrestleMania.
Yes.
And then I don't know. It's not really. I mean, I guess WWE owns them now and stuff, but the ECW theme song for every one of their events, like it's extreme. That song is like any of the video packages they used to put over those things. Just I don't know. This is what it. Right when you said it, that's the first thing that popped in my head. Was the
Yeah, the video package and the song go together. You know, it's almost like you don't have one without the other.
Yeah, definitely. So Ryan,
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
who do you got?
I had My Way as well, so I'm just gonna say it's my third. This is a cheap cop-out type one, but 1997 Sold Out NWO theme.
yeah.
Okay.
But no, honestly, the only one with the shorter notice, the only one that came to mind was ECW Guilty as Charged 2001, their last real pay-per-view, in my opinion. They used Renegades of Funk by Rage Against the Machine.
Okay.
Something about that video package. It might have been at the end, because I recall they showed all the highlights of the pay-per-view. So maybe it was the end song, but
Yeah, you always do at the end of the ECW pay-per-view. So the whole highlight.
That's awesome.
yeah, everyone knows they lost pay-per-view, but I mean that still just love the song and can picture the highlights from it.
Yes, that's awesome.
I like those picks too. So my three, kind of out there. So I went with Clement Marfo and the Frontlines champion from Royal Rumble 2013.
That's
When you
good.
had CM Punk versus The Rock. Because just that like it includes CM Punk's lines like, your hands are just too short to box with God. And I thought that's one of the greatest lines I've ever heard. And I always thought like if I was ever confronted somebody, like I would use that and then just proceed to get my ass kicked. But yeah.
Well, before you continue, they actually use that song again the next month for Elimination Chamber, which I found was kind of lazy, but it was so whatever.
It's a great song. You can't knock them.
Yeah.
And then sticking with the Royal Rumble, I went with Stand Up for Rock and Roll by Airborne from the 2008 Rumble. I thought Airborne was going to take off, be like my generation's AC/DC, and I was completely wrong.
Did not happen.
No. Great album, though. But and then my third one is selfishly from WrestleMania 29 from Diddy Coming Home, because it was the first Mania I was ever in. And they had a promotional thing where like, WrestleMania is coming home. So print out this arrow that says like how many miles to WrestleMania. And so what I did was I went to MetLife Stadium and I wrote 0 miles and stood in front, and I was a part of the video package.
Awesome.
So
smart thinking.
I was like, it's like 60 miles to MetLife from here, or I could drive to MetLife like a nutcase, which makes me a wrestling nerd.
There you go.
That's how you
tie it all back.
I love it.
So I don't even know how long we've been going for this. It feels like nothing.
We got that paid Zoom now.
Exactly. We've upgraded. We have unlimited Zoom. We could go for 30 hours if we so please. We're not going to keep you that long, I promise. So, but Greg, plug away where we can find you. If you got any shows coming up, I know you got a Patreon, all that.
Well, I'll be down in Tampa for WrestleMania week.
My neck of the woods.
Part of what was once Joey Janela's spring break is now Ricky Shane Page and 440 spring break. And of course, I'm a very prominent member of 440. So we're taking over spring break, and that occurs, I believe, that Friday night. And I'm definitely looking forward to that. But I'll be there for about 4 or 5 days, and I have about 4 or 5 shows. So there's going to be a number of shows in which you'll be able to see me on. And of course, if you want to support me, the best way to do that is on my Patreon. We have the podcast, which you can listen to for free on iTunes or wherever you download podcasts. That would be Iron on Wrestling. We drop new episodes each and every Wednesday. And we've had great guests in the past, like Stone Cold Steve Austin, Johnny Gargano, Kurt Stallion, Kimberly. Just the list goes on and on and on. Dan Housen's very popular. Effie, just independent guys that were in WWE. We have a plethora of guests. And we also talk about a number of subjects outside of wrestling. And it's always a good time. And then, of course, course, if you want to support on Patreon, that's patreon.com/Iron on Wrestling. There's about 100 bonus episodes just on Patreon with the audio. We do Zoom chats once a month, which I just did this weekend, which was a great time where I talked to a lot of my Patreon subscribers. People pick podcast subjects on there. Some people even come in studio and are part of the podcast. It's just a good time. And more important than creating the content, it's creating a community for wrestling fans. And I like to think that we have a nice little community where, I don't know, just we all love each other. We have a good time, and it's fun stuff. So check it out, patreon.com/Iron on Wrestling. You won't be disappointed.
We were not disappointed with you as a guest. This has
That's
truly
good.
been awesome. This is just like mind blown. We got a legitimate professional wrestler on this show, on the Wrestling Nerd broadcast. So Gregory, thank you so much for coming on. We wish you all the best in Tampa during Mania weekend. And again, your career going forward. Ryan, do you have something to say?
Yeah, no, just at the end, something you said, it blew our mind. I want to blow Greg's mind, maybe see if something will blow his mind.
Uh-oh.
He'll find out eventually. This is coming your way eventually.
Wait, I don't see it. What? Hold on. I got to switch. What am I looking at? Ryan, say something so I can see what you're showing.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I see. Oh my God. Okay, I see it now. What the heck? That's a real thing?
Super Nash, Micro Brawler, coming your way soon enough.
What?
Run
Yeah.
up to your suite.
Dude, that's awesome.
He's a big TMNT fan, and I know you've told stories about Kevin Nash as well. But it's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
Oh my God.
David Smith kind of changed the game. We're like, this doesn't belong in the Micro Brawler universe. This is
Oh, yes,
crazy.
it does.
No, I agree.
I love it. I thought they dropped the ball when the WWE came out with WWE Ninja Turtle figures, and they didn't do a Super Shredder Nash. Why
Right.
didn't they do that? Like, I was so pissed. I was like, here's your opportunity for the crossover, you dumb sons of bitches, and you didn't do it.
That's true.
Chef's kiss. That's what I say.
I'm just happy that someone else was excited about the Super Shredder Brawler because it caught a lot of flack, and I don't know why. Like, because
Not
it's not.
everybody's turtle people.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's one of the cool. It's one of my top 5 brawlers, easily. Top
For
5
sure.
favorite.
That's
I
amazing.
wish I could have gotten the chase, but you know. Oh well.
You can for $150 on eBay.
Start up the Patreon, and then we can talk about maybe me buying a brawler. Okay, how about that, Nick? Yeah, we're gonna have a Patreon one day, eventually, when these two get their acts together.
We're still growing.
We're still growing, but so yeah, that is gonna do it for this episode of the Wrestling Nerd broadcast. Again, Gregory, thank you so much for coming on this show. It is meant the world to us. You have no idea.
Definitely.
This is a surreal moment. So
I love being a part of it. Thanks for having me.
yes, absolutely. So on behalf of myself, Nick Carpenter, Ryan Crossley, and of course the one, the only Gregory Iron, this has been the Wrestling Nerd broadcast. And on behalf of everyone, don't forget to tell your mother you love her every day because, like Kevin Durant said, Mama, you're the real MVP. Good night, everyone, and God bless America.